Variable on both sides. When solving equations, the variable should be on one side of the equal sign. If the variable is on both sides, then we need to move one variable to the other side by adding or subtracting. So let's go ahead and look at this example. So here we have an equation. We have 4d minus 10 equals 2d plus 12. So in order to get the variable d on one side, we need to move one of these to the other side. So let's go ahead and move the smaller one here. So let's first go ahead and rewrite this. And if we're going to go ahead and move the smaller one, since this is positive, we're going to go ahead and subtract. And we do this to both sides. And we do it with the variable. So we have 2d minus 2d, which is equal to 0. So we just removed it from the right-hand side and moved it to the left-hand side. So now when we have 4d minus 2d, so we really just have 4 minus 2, which is equal to 2d. Then we have minus 10, this equal sign, and then we're going to go ahead and bring down that 12. So now we have 2d minus 10 equals 12. And so now we need to get the variable by itself. So our next step will be to move this 10 to the other side. And so because this is negative, or we're subtracting 10, we're going to go ahead and add 10 to both sides. So this gets rid of it here, and this becomes 0. So now we're left with 2d plus 0. We'll just remove this 0 from here, and we'll just go 12 plus 10, which is 22. Now 2d is equal to 22. So our final step to get d all by itself is to divide by 2 on both sides. This just becomes 1. Now we have 22 divided by 2, which is equal to 11. And we can always confirm with a calculator. 22 divided by 2, which is equal to 11, as confirmed. So d is then 11 in this equation. So let's look at another example. Solve the following. 7x plus 4 equals 9x minus 22. This time we're going to move the 7x to the right-hand side. It's a smaller one, so sometimes it's just easier to deal with that. So now we have 9x minus 7x, as this is just 0. So 9 minus 7 is 2x. Then we have minus 22. Now, the next thing is we want to get x by itself. And so the next step would be is to get rid of this 22. So we're going to go ahead and add 22 to both sides. So let's go ahead and do that. This becomes just 0. So then we're left with 2x plus 0. Or we just write 2x. Now 4 plus 22 is 26. As 4 plus 2 is 6. And then the 2 is just the drop down. So now we have this 2x is equal to 26. So we go ahead and divide by 2 on both sides. This gets rid of the 2 on the right-hand side, as it's just equal to 1. So 26 divided by 2 is really 13. So x is 13. Let's go ahead and look at another example. Example 3. Solve the following. We have 2.2x minus 4 is equal to 1.1x plus 2.6. And so in this equation now we have decimals, which we do exactly the same thing as we've been doing before, as we want to get x by itself. And so the first thing we're going to do is remove the 1.1x on the right hand side. So we're going to go ahead and subtract to both sides. This gets rid of it here, and this just becomes 0. We have this negative 4 we're just going to bring down. And then we have 2.2 minus 1.1, which is just equal to 1.1x. Now we need to get x by itself. So let's go ahead and add 4 to both sides. We're going to add 4 to the 2.6. So this just becomes 0. And then 2.6 plus 4 is just 6.6. And then we have 1.1x here. So when we rewrite this, we need to get x by itself. In order to do that, we divide by 1.1 to both sides. This just becomes a 1. And then now we have 6.6 divided by 1.1, which is equal to 6. So x is equal to 6 here. Let's do one final example. Solve for the following. So in this one, you can see it's a little bit longer. And so we're going to need to simplify before we start adding and subtracting on the left-hand side. So let's go ahead and regroup certain numbers together. I like to add the ends, and we'll just put them right next to each other. And then we'll put these next to each other because these are just numbers. This helps me kind of think through what I have to do next. So we have 2.1n plus 5.5n plus 3.1 plus 2.2, which is equal to 2.85n plus 2.5. So our first step will be is to add this together. So we have 2.1 plus 5.5, which is equal to 7.6n. Our next thing will be is to add these together. So we have 3.1 plus 2.2, which is equal to 5.3. So now we have an equation that we have been working with in the previous examples. So what we need to do is get n to one side. So the next step will be is to subtract this 2.85n to both sides. This gets rid of it here, and we can just go ahead and bring down that 2.5. Then we have this 5.3 here, and then we have 7.6 minus 2.85, which is equal to 4.75 n. Our next step will be is to subtract this 5.3 to both sides. So we have 2.5 minus 5.3, and we're left with negative 2.8. And then we have this 4.75 n. So our next step will be to get n by itself. And the way we do that is we're just going to go ahead and divide by the 4.75. So this just becomes 1 on the left-hand side for the number. And then we're left with n is equal to negative 2.8 divided by 4.75, which is equal to negative 0.59. And as we rounded to our nearest hundredth.